How to get residency in Uruguay. Today I'm going to fill you in how you can get temporary residency and permanent residency in Uruguay, and why Uruguay is one of the best countries to live in the 21st century. Welcome to Nomad Elite, where we help middle-class expats and nomads survive and thrive in the 21st century. Let's talk about Uruguay Basics. Uruguay is a coastal country located in South America. It borders Argentina and Brazil. With a population of slightly above 3.4 million inhabitants, Uruguay is one of the smaller countries in South America. Uruguay is a Spanish-speaking country. It is very European. You will see that when you get there. The European architecture is very prevalent in Montevideo, Uruguay. Uruguay is considered one of the safest countries in Latin America. It is also a country that offers one of the best passports in Latin America. Before we get started talking about a Uruguay residency, I wanted to point out how you can visit Uruguay as a foreigner. If you come from a visa-free country, let's say you're from the US, you're from Canada, you're from the EU, you're from the UK, Australia, New Zealand. If you're from any of these countries, you can visit Uruguay visa-free for up to 90 days. What's great about coming to Uruguay as a tourist, as a visa-free tourist, is that you don't have to apply for an entry permit. And while you're on Uruguay on your 90-day tourist visa, you can start the residency application process while you're in the country. Nationals of non-visa-free countries would have to apply for an entry permit before they can travel to Uruguay and apply for residency in the country. This is a much harder approach. So let's say you were from Asia, you were from the Middle East, you were from Africa. Of course, unless you're from South Africa or you're like from Korea, South Korea, Japan, Singapore. You know, if you're from one of the countries that are exempt from needing a visa to enter Uruguay, it's going to be hard because the whole entry permit process is not easy. You have to find a sponsor, and only certain people may qualify for this special role. It's very hard to do. We're seeing this in Paraguay too. Argentina is a little bit easier, but Uruguay and Paraguay just make it harder to get an entry permit from a person from a non-visa-free country. So having a good passport definitely helps. Why should you get Uruguayan residency? A lot of people want to get citizenship in Latin America. It's just easier to get citizenship in many Latin American countries than it is in Africa, Asia, and the Middle East. It's just a matter of fact. A lot of people are looking into that. If you are in Uruguay, if you have lived in Uruguay 5 years on residency, you must have been on residency for 5 years, you can apply for Uruguayan citizenship. There's an exception to this rule. If you marry a Uruguayan citizen, you may get citizenship in fewer than 5 years. Maybe you can get it in 3 years. But most people are looking at the 5-year plan, and Uruguay has certain requirements before they allow you to naturalize in the country: language skills, history skills, and so forth. It's definitely one of the countries where it's a bit harder to get citizenship. Mexico and Argentina are just easier. Let's talk about permanent residency in Uruguay. One thing you need to understand, that Uruguayan residency is not really a paper residency like other countries may have now or had in the past. Uruguay really requires you to live in the country because it's a different country, different rules, and they have a minimum stay requirements to not lose residency. And some countries are stricter than others, so it's really important that you observe and follow the legal code to a T. Uruguay really is stricter with this. A couple documents that you must supply to become a legal resident of Uruguay. You first must show a legal entry into the country. So if you come in as a tourist, that's your tourist stamp. And the second thing that you need is, of course, your passport. That's always important. And your criminal record certificate. The criminal record certificate is very important. It must be from your home country where you have resided prior to immigrating to Uruguay. And if you have lived in any country for more than 6 months over the past 5 years, you may also require a criminal record certificate from that country. If you have lived outside your country of citizenship, let's say that's been for the past 3 years or 2 years, or any period that's longer than 6 months, you would actually have to show that as well. So someone who lives in a different country where they're not a citizen would actually have to supply 2 different criminal record checks. Certain health documentation is needed to get residency in Uruguay. We're talking about a health card that's issued by a private or public healthcare provider in Uruguay, so you must supply that along with your application. This is important, you must have it, and your vaccination scheme certificate. The next thing that you need is to prove means of a livelihood. So let's say you have a pension, you have social security, or you have a business that supplies you monthly income. How you generate your income, I don't know, but you have to supply some kind of proof that you have legitimate income for you to immigrate to Uruguay, especially if you do it through income proof. Next, we have permanent residency for Mercosur citizens. Mercosur is a political and economic alliance located in South America. Many countries are part of it: Chile, Argentina, Uruguay, Paraguay, Brazil, Peru, Ecuador, and a couple more. So if you are a citizen of a Mercosur country, a Spanish or Portuguese speaking country, I mean there's only one, right? There's only Brazil that speaks Portuguese. You can also immigrate to Uruguay, and it's actually easier than if you were to come from outside Mercosur. What you need are your passport photos, your passport, your criminal record certificate from your native country, and of course also your health card. What about temporary residency in Uruguay? The process is very similar. The documents you have to provide are also very similar, but there are some differences. So temporary residency, you must be in Uruguay for at least 2 months, but it cannot be more than 2 years. Temporary residency is capped at 2 years in Uruguay. It's also like this in Paraguay, it's capped at 2 years. In Paraguay, you can convert then after 2 years, you change your status and you submit a new application and then you change your status to permanent residency. And then permanent residency in Paraguay is really permanent. And in Uruguay, it's very similar. In Uruguay, it's just that it's for 2 years and then you would also have to do something, right? Because if not, if you don't change your status before temporary residency expires, you may have to redo the whole process, right? So it's really important to carefully observe the time windows so it doesn't elapse. You want to avoid this at all costs. So once you're ready to convert to permanent residence, and it must be before the window closes, you do that and you change your status, you submit the new application, and then you switch from temporary residency to permanent residency. Who can qualify for Uruguayan temporary residency? Students, it's a very popular option that we have started discussing more on our channel. Let's say you want to enroll into a school, university in Montevideo. You can do that. You obviously have to, follow a process that's a little bit different than what we've been talking about before, but you can get an education visa, a school visa, and that would be a very legitimate way for you to immigrate to Uruguay, go to school, learn something that you're excited about that really adds to your overall value and creates a great path for a new life in Uruguay. Obviously, there's school fees to pay, university fees to pay, so this is not for free. Additional costs will incur when you sign up for an education visa in Uruguay. Let's say you want to go work in Uruguay. You have an invitation letter from a Uruguayan company. That's not a great way for you to get into South America. If you have a company that's willing to sponsor you, let's say you have a special skill set, a unique skill set, you have maybe something innovative to add to the Uruguayan economy, you may qualify for a work visa in Uruguay. Also, Uruguay has a religious visa, which is interesting. Not all countries have that. Many Latin countries have it. I think most have it. Let's say you belong to a recognized church and you're being sent to Uruguay to perform certain activities, then that would be another interesting, very new, very unheard of way for you to get into South America. Okay, let's say you have different intentions, okay? Not everyone wants to retire in Uruguay, not everyone has maybe passive income, not everyone wants to go to school. We talk about this with our clients every week because we propose this option. Many people want to go back to school, other people are afraid of going back to school, they don't want to waste time, but we're all different. So you can consider a business visa. Let's say you have certain investment objectives you want to implement in Uruguay and you have projects in mind, maybe you have formed a partnership, an online partnership. It's maybe time for you to make the investment in Uruguay, the South American country. You could qualify for a business visa. The contingency is that the company is actually Uruguayan. It must be based in Uruguayan territory. You can't do business with a company from outside of Uruguay. That would not qualify you to obtain a business visa in the country. This specific visa is valid for 90 days and can be extended for 90 days. So let's say you are from a non-treaty country where you don't enjoy visa-free access to Uruguay, you may want to consider getting a business visa. It could be one of the easiest ways for you to get into Uruguay and potentially explore further options for residency once you're in the country. However, you have to make sure that you don't break any laws, that you comply to the Uruguayan legal code to a T. Investment options that may qualify you to obtain a business visa in Uruguay include, but are not limited to, real estate investments and investments in local companies. Uruguay is a beautiful country. It is a very interesting place. It has a high standard of living. It's one of the safest countries in Latin America. It has a good amount of value, and it offers an environment that's conducive to work, networking, and I think many good things will happen in Uruguay in the 21st century. Let's say you can't qualify by proving income, you can't qualify by going to school, you don't want that, you don't want to start a company, you may want to consider getting residency in Paraguay, where you don't have to prove economic solvency, you don't have to incorporate a company. It's really the easiest second residence permits in Latin America right now. Something that we haven't really talked about yet is, of course, Uruguay's residency. So there is a tax exemption that a new resident may qualify for. And in Paraguay as well, if you want to get temporary residency in Paraguay and obtain tax residency in Paraguay, you may not pay taxes on most foreign sourced income. Both options are very valid options, legitimate options. There are paths to citizenship in the two countries. If you're interested in obtaining a residence permit in Paraguay or Uruguay, and we're running a special promo this month offering our services at a significant discount, if you want to take us up on this amazing deal, click on the link below the video. You should also see it displayed on the screen right now. Thank you so much for watching Nomad Elite. We appreciate you, and we'll also see you soon in Uruguay or Paraguay. Thank you again, and I'll see you in the next one.